The furnaces at Saudi Aramco's Ras Tanura refinery are not firing on all cylinders. Global oil demand's been weak in recent months, and competition among suppliers is rising because of increasing US shale production. That's driven Aramco's profits down 12% in the first 6 months of 2019 compared to last year. It's hoping to reignite sales by investing in India, the world's third largest oil consumer.
I am now delighted to make an announcement about the biggest foreign investment in the history of Reliance. It is also amongst the largest foreign investments ever in India. Saudi Aramco and Reliance have agreed to form a long-term partnership in our oil to chemicals division. In terms of the understanding between the parties, Saudi Aramco will invest in Reliance for a 20% stake in our oil to chemicals division at an enterprise value of $75 billion.
As part of the deal, Aramco will get a 20% stake in the Jamnagar refinery in the western state of Gujarat. It's the world's largest refinery with capacity of 1.2 million barrels per day. It produces jet fuel, lubricants and other petrochemicals. These products usually fetch higher margins than crude oil, so Aramco is expected to earn more from them. The refinery deal was signed as the kingdom prepares to sell stocks in its oil company to the public. It's hoping to raise $100 billion by listing 5% of its shares on stock exchanges. That would value Aramco at $2 trillion, making it the world's largest company. The initial public offering's been delayed because of low oil prices, but Riyadh says it will eventually proceed with the sale, possibly as early as next year. Aramco's been acquiring more assets within the kingdom as well as in other markets. Analysts say these purchases are raising the prospect of higher profits in the future, making the company more attractive for investors.
Assuming that bond yields are still relatively low at that point, this is going to be the biggest thing of all time. So it will dwarf any other companies. So it's a big issue. Everybody will want to participate. There'll be folks willing to pay up, and I have a feeling that at the end of the day, the prince's price will be close to where it goes down.
Before Aramco can sell its shares to the public, it will have to share more information about its accounting practices and how it's run. On Monday, it took a step in that direction by convening a conference call to discuss its financial performance. If it can persuade analysts and potential investors that it's making sound investments, Aramco and the kingdom could soon be raking in much more than they've spent in India and elsewhere in the world. Mobin Nasir, GRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now with Ellen Wald in Jacksonville, Florida. She's the president of the energy research firm Transversal Consulting and author of the book Saudi Inc. Welcome back to Money Talks, Ellen. So a drop in profit for Saudi Aramco, but it still managed to make a healthy $47 billion in the first half of the year. As we get more glimpses of Aramco's finances, do you think they're in good shape?
I think that Aramco is an extraordinarily profitable company, and despite the fact that its profit is down about 12% this year, it's still the most profitable company in the world. So I think that that really speaks for itself. There were some very interesting things that were revealed, particularly in terms of the dividend that Aramco is paying to the Saudi government. We learned that despite the fact that profits were down, the dividend was actually up. And that included both what they refer to as an ordinary dividend and a special dividend, which jumped by $14 billion. And I do think that that's something that Aramco is going to have to explain in much greater detail if they do move forward with an IPO, because investors are going to want to know where its money is going and why it's suddenly giving more to the Saudi government, and if this kind of payouts essentially to the government will continue even if it is a public company.
Yes, and on the subject of that highly anticipated IPO, Saudi Aramco's Chief Financial Officer Khalid Al-Dabba says the company is ready to go public just as soon as the government is ready for it to list. When do you think that will be, and what's the hold-up?
Well, that's an interesting answer and an interesting question. The fact is that when Aramco revealed more of its finances during its bond offering, we learned that the real reason that Aramco didn't go public in 2018 was because it wasn't actually ready. It installed a new fiscal regime, particularly with regards to how it pays its taxes and how it's reimbursed for energy that it provides to the kingdom. And that new system hadn't been in place for very long. They needed to show at least 1 year. I do think they really need to show more than just 1 year under this new fiscal regime. Two would probably be the minimum. So I really can't foresee them going public with their books before 2020. And really, I do think it's too late for that. So I really don't think we'll see an IPO for some time.
And what about the issue of falling oil prices? We know Saudi Arabia is very keen to prop those prices up. It's looking at perhaps extending production cuts or even deepening them into the future. Do you think they'll be able to get the oil prices back up again?
This is a big issue, and we know that Saudi Arabia has already decided that it had planned to increase production in September, which it completely has room within its OPEC quota to do that, but has now decided it's not going to increase production. So it's not really cutting oil production, but it's cutting back on a planned increase. I really don't think that there is all that much that Saudi Arabia and really OPEC can do at this point, given that we're all acknowledging that prices are really more determined by the economic outlook in the world, the U.S.-China situation, much more than what's going on with supply. And so a supply solution isn't really going to provide any kind of sustained jump in oil prices unless it was incredibly significant. And I just don't see that happening right now.
Okay, Ellen Wald, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you for your thoughts as always.